Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your transforming hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. As this wretched year comes to a close, we take a look back at the few things that brought some jolly feelings into our lives. So as usual, on our season finales here at Anime Brain Freeze, today we will pick our best anime of the season. And of course, we are not quite done with summer season yet, and we'll tackle 2 more shows in this episode. First, I will take a look at a bunch of outsiders, hoodlums, and fuck-ups who form a basketball team in Ahiru no Sora. And finally, both John and I will return to the cursed household of the Soma family in the second season of Fruits Basket. Before all of that, we will talk about the changes that are afoot for one of our recurring segments, the Chop and Drop. So let's get this end of the year party started right now. Don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. So yeah, here we are in our final Chop and Drop. Surprise, I guess. It's not completely going away, just as a small spoiler here, but we felt there was a need to restructure this thing and do something different with it for several reasons. The first, basically, we plan to downsize the amount of anime we will review for several reasons. A bit of real life here and there, a bit of burnout here and there, and us having just watched a lot of anime and reviewed a lot of anime in the previous seasons and not doing much else. Anyway, so another reason the Chop and Drop as a segment doesn't really make that, or hasn't made that much sense in its current incarnation the previous times we did it was, since we usually already named the reasons for why we might drop one of the shows in the sneak peek these days, and those rarely change, this segment really doesn't fulfill a purpose anymore, because we usually don't elaborate on the reasons that much more than we did in the sneak peek. Usually that reason is already set. So we kind of repeating ourselves when we talk in the Chop and Drop, and that's kind of a bit of wasted air and time. So
I mean, it's kind of weird though, because there might be an exception where you start getting into a show and then and you just drop it mid-season or something.
Yeah, it rarely happens though. So usually, or at least that's for me the case for me. And I can see why I wouldn't continue this show usually ahead of times, and usually that's the reason why I drop it. So I don't know about you, John, but I thought in the way this works, just doing a segment for just the shows that we dropped was a bit superfluous. For both these reasons, we will rename this segment to The Quick and the Dead. What does that mean? If there's a show that we drop but want to still talk about regardless for one reason or another, it will go here as usual. And same goes now for shows that we finished watching but that maybe don't have enough substance or interesting things to talk about for a full review. So instead we'll just quickly highlight a few things we liked or disliked about them in this segment. And this also enables us to maybe add some improvised quickfire review for shows or movies that didn't feature into our normal review schedule, but that we watched for one reason or another and still have some things to say about. So maybe revisited an old show and have some few things on our mind, or we just felt like binging a show from an earlier season and want to talk about that a bit. All of that will go into this segment in the future. Just some loose, quick talking points without any info about staff or general plot overview. Also, spoilers will roam free in this segment from now on in general, so be aware of that. Alright, these are the changes. Going right into it, John has a quickfire review for this new segment. So I guess we're starting off with the Quick and Dead right now. And John, you got something from summer that you feel like didn't merit a full review, but that you wanted to talk about a bit anyway, maybe? So what is it?
So I wasn't sure if I'd stick with it, and I don't know why I stuck with it, but I watched Rent a Girlfriend beginning to end. That show is, how can I sum it up very succinctly? Sexual frustration runs rampant throughout a young college boy's life.
That sounds like very anime indeed.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of nice to have a story that's not, fucking high school rom-com for once. At least it's a little aged up.
It's always welcome because, I guess maybe they're not too comfortable doing that in high school usually, so...
Yeah. To say that this show's story is one about a series of bad decisions that goes wildly out of control would be correct, because things just keep going further and further downhill for Kazuya as he's trying to keep up this facade that he's dating this girl who's not really his girlfriend, and then this other girl who finds out their secret gets involved, and Kazuya's grandmother and Chizuru's grandmother are both under the false assumption that they're dating, and it's just one big fat fucking mess. And watching the story unfold, it's just like, oh boy, what is the flavor of the week bad decision? And it's really weird to say that this show kind of had a little bit of heart to it too, though, because you could see that the characters are slowly growing together, and Kazuya wants to make what he doesn't have real, and he just doesn't do it because he's a stupid young college kid with no real actual moral compass. But I don't know, there's something about it just compelled me to keep watching, and I don't know, I don't think it's worth talking about more than that. But apparently there may be a second season from what they were talking about, so maybe then I might change my mind. But for now, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, you didn't hate it, apparently, otherwise you wouldn't have finished it.
No.
It's not sword art. You were not hate watching it.
Oh, God, I was not so... No, this was not a hate watch. It was more of I just need to see how much worse these characters make their lives for each other. But
what would one call that? Like cringe interest? Or, I don't know, it's... a
look in the mirror.
All right, sure, why not? Self-reflection.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's not like it was a badly produced show either. It looked consistently pretty good. So, at least on that front, it was at least pretty and nice. But, that's the TLDR of Rent-A-Girlfriend, and I guess our only quick in the dead. Apologies to CC in post because we had to make some changes to this talk.
No problem at all. I love improvising. I don't, but I still can. Anyway. All right. So, that was our first very quick and dead review, and expect more to come. I have no idea, or we have no idea when. This is not going to be necessarily a recurring segment. It might happen the next season again. It might not. We'll see, whatever tickles our fancy. But yeah, look forward to more quick reviews that will go into this segment, be it of dropped shows or finished ones. Yeah, that's it for the quick and the dead, and now let's move over to an actual standard review. That is anything but.
Oh no.
Or is it? High school first-year student Sora Kurumatani doesn't look like much, and it's easy to get the impression that he has an inflated sense of his own skill. When he tells a group of 5 thugs trying to rob him that he'll fight them all, he's soundly trounced. But all of that changes when he gets on the basketball court. With his pro player mother's shoes and his promise to her, Sora's a dedicated player with a skill that belies his short stature. The only problem is that his new school's basketball team has become a gathering place for delinquents who are more interested in beating people up than playing games. Can Sora's determination and love of the game change himself and the people in his life enough to come together as a team? And can this unlikely team form skills and bonds strong enough to prevail on the court? Ahiru no Sora is based on a manga by Takeshi Hinata. It started its original run in December 2003 and is still being published and counts 51 volumes at this point, which coincidentally is almost the exact number of episodes the anime adaptation got so far, which started in October 2019 and ran for 50 episodes. So definitely one of the longest single-season shows we've reviewed here on ABF, if not the longest. Maybe if you count both Course of JoJo's Stardust Crusaders as one, that's more, I guess. But yeah, it's up there. And the anime adaptation was produced by Diomedea, who have come up in our show at least twice, because they also did the animation production on Chio's School Road and Girlish Number, which we both reviewed. They also did Domestic Girlfriend and Squid Girl, among many other things.
Ah, yes. Domestic Girlfriend, that show.
Yes, indeed, that show.
We were made aware of, the world was made aware of it. Thank you, Giguk.
It's not only him, I think.
Yeah.
I think Mother of Spaceman covered it too. Ahiru no Sora has a director and chief director credit, the former being Shingo Tamaki, who was also the director on Aho Girl, which... okay. He also did some storyboards and key animation on the Nanoha franchise and some other stuff. And the chief director of Ahiru no Sora is Keizo Kusakawa, who also directed 1.5 seasons of Nanoha and 2 Nanoha movies. Also stuff like Dog Days, Inukami, and Asura Crying. And the animation on Ahiru no Sora is there. Sometimes. Barely. This might sound harsher than it's supposed to, but there really isn't that much animation in this anime. It's really basic. Of course, there is a lot of talking heads, but during the matches, which is where shows like Kuroko's Basketball or Haikyuu deliver the Sakuga, this mostly has some neat, fluid slow-mo movements at best. Mostly it's a lot of pans, a lot of still shots, a lot of reaction faces, a slowing time down to have the characters, commentators, and onlookers narrate the plays. I mean, it gets the job done, but don't expect anything close to the level of Haikyuu or its top sports anime peers. If you come to anime for just the animation, this show is not for you. That being said, the character models are mostly sharp and on model, even if it might take you some time to get used to all the really white mouths the characters have. There are also a lot of really well-edited comedy scenes, and the first and last couple of episodes actually show a hint of budget, so that's cool. Actually, the animation quality and sensibilities in general reminded me of the basketball anime classic Slam Dunk, which also had pretty limited animation, but delivered the goods when it had to, which Ahiru no Sora does in a way as well. In that regard, it's also really fitting that one of the members of a rival team in the show got into basketball because he read Slam Dunk, so that's a nice reference. So, if the animation in the show doesn't really bring it, what does? I mean, there must be something, or I wouldn't have watched all 50 episodes of this, right? Well, first there is the music by Hiroaki Tsutsumi, who also composed the soundtrack for Dr. Stone, which definitely was one of my favorite things about that show as well, as I pointed out in my review of its first season. Looking forward to the start of the second one in a couple of weeks. And currently, you can hear his amazing work in Jujutsu Kaisen, which, again, is a stellar outing. And the soundtrack of Ahiru no Sora definitely fits right in with those other two, since this is a sports anime. There are, of course, a lot of hype tracks that are supposed to get you super pumped for dramatic developments during the matches, like a cool play or comeback moment for one of the teams. Those, of course, get repeated a lot, but I never got sick of them because they are really good and compensate for the lack of big-hitting animation moments by channeling some real oomph into your speakers. I linked you 2 tracks the other day, John, and they were quite hype. Were they not?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. But surprisingly, there are also some really good emotional somber tracks in there, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from a show with that setup and that cast. But yeah, they're there, and they are really good and enrich these moments a lot. Speaking of the emotional moments, that is the other department where Ahiru no Sora actually soars, because its characters and character development are kind of fucking great. The main character is, of course, Sora, who is a small dude who, as established in the summary, gets always beaten up by stronger guys because he kind of, even though he doesn't really have the physical skills, likes to pick fights, which is not a really good attitude, but he's just a guy that doesn't back down, which is kind of a character quality, I guess. His mom was a basketball player before she became sick. Anime mom disease. We'll get to that. And yeah, so he basically has the talent in his genes, and the love for basketball was, of course, kindled by his mom. So yeah, he has been playing basketball for a long time, and now at his new school, he wants to join the basketball club. Problem is, that club is full of no-goods and delinquents who, some of them actually have played basketball before and stopped playing it for several different reasons. And of course, the series elaborates on that during its runtime. But right now, they're more into like fucking around, playing video games, maybe starting trouble, beating other people up, beating each other up. Basically just a bunch of hoodlums and problem children. And Sora wants to play them, but they won't have any of it in the beginning, and then he baits them into a 5-on-1 competition to join the team. And man, that kid has moves, so he totally annihilates them, basically. And it's a great moment, just in general, and a great starting point to get you into the series and into the character of Sora, and feeling like immediately sympathetic to his plight and everything, and his passion and love for basketball. It totally reminds me of Hajime no Ippo. Sora is also this super sweet guy and who has the guts to stand the ground, even if he really doesn't have the means to, the physical means anyway. But yeah, he puts a lot of work into all of his stuff. He wants to improve. He has a straight goal in mind. He wants to bring the team to the inter high, basically. He just wants to play basketball every day. He wants to be the best that he can be, even though he has a very small stature. And the other people on his team, or what will become the team later after, he gets them to actually play and kind of rekindle their love for the sport, are delinquents, yes, and they're jackasses and asshole, but all of them kind of somewhere in there have a heart of gold, of course. So, yeah, that's also kind of a parallel to Hajime no Ippo, because some of the characters in there are also kind of delinquents or kind of assholes in a way. I really saw the parallels there, and I love Hajime no Ippo. I goddamn love that show. So I was like, hey, okay, I guess this show is for me. And it was, despite its lacking animation quality. And yeah, so that's basically the setup of the show. Sora gets his infectious passion for the sport, ropes in all of the guys who didn't really want to have anything to do with basketball, or not have anything to do with it anymore for certain reasons, because they experienced some troubling times before, or, still don't really know what they want to do with their lives, or whatever. There are several reasons for that. So he wants to make this a team and basically get them to a big tournament and become maybe a contender for best of the country or whatever. And that's the road, and that's the goal, and that's a very long and hard road. Very, very long and hard road. Mm-hmm. And we're not even close to getting there at the end of these 50 episodes. Not even remotely. Boy. There are a lot of hardships. There are a lot of losses on the way in several ways, not only on the court, but outside of the court as well. And this show is a lot about losing shit and coping with that and overcoming that and becoming a better version of yourself, and not trying to get bogged down in your own self-hatred, your own depression, using others to vent your anger and everything. So this has some really, really potent character drama and some really great character development, which I did not expect. I mean, I've encountered some anime with good character sports anime with good character development. Haikyuu has great character development. Kuroko's basketball, all right, to an extent. It's not that prevalent, I guess, but it's in there. And Yowamushi Pedal is also pretty good in that regard. But something about Ahiru no Sora, I don't know, something about these characters being all these fuck-ups and kind of has-beens, or people who haven't really figured out their lives and are angry at something and try to deny what they're really angry at, and trying to basically put roadblocks into their own way. And then Sora coming into everyone's life and kind of with his way of thinking and with his enthusiasm and everything, kind of starting to make these people face what is important to them and how they can actually improve their self-image and basically create a better version of themselves by the way of basketball. Of course, that's the language that is spoken here. And I don't know, all of that kind of worked for me. I kind of loved it. I wish, of course, that the animation was also up to par, but I guess you can't have everything. But yeah, let's return to Sora for a moment here. Like I said before, Sora's mom was a basketball player on the national team and now is in a hospital suffering from anime mom disease. Which means, in case I have never explained this before, I use this term a lot, but what this means is it's not really explained what disease she is suffering from. It's usually like sick in bed, very tired, very frail, very pale complexion. It could be anything from cancer through, I don't know, from cancer to AIDS, some other infection, some heart disease, you name it. It's just not specified. It's like,
so use your imagination.
Use your imagination. That woman is sick. That woman is very, very, very sick. And yeah, we'll get to that. Some of that worked for me. Some of that didn't. That is probably my only gripe with the show. I get to that later. But yeah, of course, he wants to make his mother proud. And for a reason, in my opinion, pretty stupid reason, but like I said, I'll get to that. He doesn't really get to see her, and so he focuses all his intent on basketball and getting better, to showing her, hey, even though I'm a small guy, even though I'm not big of stature, and that's kind of what you need for basketball. That's the opinion, the general opinion anyway. I would show you that I will turn this team around, and I will become the best player there is, and I will make you proud. So that's a pretty strong setup, a pretty strong hook for our main character, pretty emotional. Yeah, it's cool. And just, like I said, Sora's just a super sympathetic character. He gets always beaten up, like always, but it's not really depressing because he has such a huge mouth on him that you feel like he maybe sometimes kind of deserves it, but it's also like, it's just charming because he's like, why would you say something in this situation? Just read the room, dude. And he just doesn't. But it's, like I said, it's also kind of sympathetic and it comes from a good place. So, it's more funny than it's kind of like, cringeworthy. And yeah, he just keeps doing it. He keeps challenging multiple people and his self-confidence is refreshing, I guess. And on the court, it's appropriate because he is an excellent player. He is a great three-point shooter. Like, he can basically sink all of his three-point shots. It's insane. His accuracy is ridiculous. He is fast, and his small height actually gives him an advantage by allowing him to do very low drive moves where he just ducks in and just basically sneaks under the other player's defenses just with this really fast duck in drive, and he's past them and then he's on the way to the basket and scores. And that's really cool to see, even if the animation is limited. We get a cool introduction to this kind of maneuver in the first or second episode where he does it, and it's really cool to see, like the plays he does and how fast he can outmaneuver his contenders. And it's cool. And ducking in actually features into the entire show, kind of like him being of small stature, doing like these very low drives and stuff like that. What kind of animal does that remind you of? A duck. That's what Ahiru means. So Ahiru no Sora, Sora the duck. And the first OP of the show actually is called Happy Go Ducky. So that also fits in with the theme. It's really great. Like, it works. And kind of, considering ugly duckling, all the characters on this team are kind of ugly ducklings, and all of the show is their journey to becoming these basketball swans. So all of this really works. It's funny, but yeah, and their white mouths also could be considered beaks. I don't know. It's a theme. It's in there definitely, and it doesn't feel heavy-handed, but you can see it everywhere. It's like, hey, yeah, this is our ducks. These people who are considered worse than they actually are and are kind of shunned by society or shunned by, the basketball pros, in Sora's case because he's so small, and they actually are very skillful, capable people and actually have a good heart and are good people down And this show is their journey about their journey showing the world what they can actually do and what they actually are and who they actually are. And that's great. That's great. I fucking love that. I love an underdog story, and everyone in this show is an underdog. Fucking everyone. So yeah, gotta love a lot there to love. Yeah, and despite Sora being really good on the court, in theory, his technique is really good and everything, he has no real match experience so far. So he still has a lot of weak points to overcome, like not being able to shoot from the left side of the court when he's forced to, or not being able to handle the building pressure of a real match very well. So there's a lot of learning experience for him still, even though he's a really gifted player. That's also important because, if he's just standing still and everyone is trying to catch up to him, that's also not really fun. Then you get shows where someone is like the super capable Goku guy and everyone is trying to be better than him. And although, Goku has opponents that he can beat at first hand too. So there's that. But he's definitely not Gary Stu, so to speak, Sora. He has a lot to learn. And there are just a lot of funny bits out there. There's a character later that comes into play. We'll talk about her later. But she's a girl, and she gives him... Sora's shoes are damaged. There are holes in there, and so he wants to get them repaired and stuff like that. And because that takes some time, she gives him shoes, and they're her shoes, and they fit his feet perfectly because he's so small and has so small feet, and it really bumps him out. And that is fucking hilarious. Like, the show in general is funny as hell. Like, there's so many funny scenes. Like, the humor in the show is fantastic. It's on par with Haikyuu's humor, if not better at times. Like, there are certain characters in there that had me laughing at everything they did because they're just hilarious or just funny jackasses or idiots. And yeah, the show is really good at that. So that was one of the bits that really made me laugh. Like I said before, none of the other team members really want to play basketball in the beginning. They just had to join some kind of club due to school regulations, or so they say. Of course, some of them really want to, deep down, play the game. And one of them is Momoharu, who becomes the captain and is one of two twins, the other one being Chiaki. They look really different, or they're just brothers, I'm not sure, but I think they're supposed to be twins.
There's identical and fraternal twins, so
I guess. Yeah, it works. But really, Momoharu is like this kind of lanky but muscular dude, very tall, with blonde dyed hair and a pompadour, like the typical Yankee cut, you know what I mean, and the typical delinquent cut haircut in classic anime, like he would be in a motorcycle gang. And the other one, Chiaki, has like this huge afro, basically, and this really smug look on his face is always like, what am I gonna do next? I feel like fucking someone over or is doing something stupid. And Momoharu wanted to play basketball but gave up because he lacked the talent and could never get good enough with just practice. And that kind of broke his spirit because he just couldn't do it and didn't have anyone to push him. Certainly not Chiaki, and we'll get to that. And yeah, so that's the reason why he stopped. But seeing Sora play the way he does and telling him how when Momoharu jumps for the first time, I think to get a rebound, how amazing that is and how he would love to be able to jump so high. Actually, that firing up Momoharu's will to try again. And then these guys push each other to become better and better. And Momoharu becomes a really good captain in his own right. And firing up his team again when they need some energy and stuff like that. And he's a really, really great rebounder. Can't shoot hoops for shit. He really can't score. Like, he's really bad at it. He can't even do a dunk. If he tries to, he just hits the basket with the ball and it bounces off. He hits his head on the shield. I don't know, but he definitely can't do it. But he's really good at getting the ball if it doesn't hit the basket. So he's a good center player, and that's a skill you also want a team. So whatever. And that happens. Chiaki, the other guy, is kind of on the opposite spectrum of his brother. He's really talented, as we later learn. He is an incredibly gifted player who, especially as a point guard, he knows what to do. He knows what other what he needs to do to get the ball to other players. He is a guy who can analyze the match setup and knows how to position himself and to do certain things to outmaneuver other players. And he has a bunch of tricks up his sleeve and stuff like that. So he's really gifted. The problem is he hates rules, regulations, and requirements, and everything that is too much effort. He's a guy that immediately gives up if something is not fun. He would rather, I don't know, sit around, play video games, eat some food. There's a plot point when he and Momoharu had an important match in the tournament, and he felt like their team probably wouldn't be able to get a win. He just left the fucking game and went to eat some ice cream. That's the guy he is. And this is also about turning that around, like the show is, and actually showing him that it matters to put the work in, and that it feels rewarding to actually pull out a win, even if you think you can't do it. And it feels good that when you help your teammates and stuff like that. And of course, deep down, it's all about him not being able to face disappointment, really. And if he distances himself from that preemptively and say like, well, I didn't participate, so it's not my fault really that we lost. And he explains that away with being like, this is too much hassle. This is too much trouble. I don't like things that are too much trouble. So yeah. Also, Chiaki is horny on main, and seems to be only interested in girls, which makes me think though, wasn't he saying he doesn't like stuff that takes too much effort? Well, I have some bad news for him then. Will he enjoy marriage? But he will join the team eventually because, of course, right? That has to happen, and he does. And that's where we go. Yeah, but Chiaki is probably the most fun when it comes to the humor in this show, because he does all the wacky, dumb shit. Like, for example, he brings a giant riding duck to the club room for some reason, and then just they open the door at some point, and he's sitting on that stupid duck and riding, and it's like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And, shit like that. And him being that giant horn dog. Sometimes this can border on creepy, but it rarely happens, and it mostly is just funny because he's also, like, constantly rejected and failing and everything. So it works. And I liked him a lot as a character, especially when he becomes more reliable, and you see some cracks in the facade that he builds up of like, hey, I don't really care about any of this. This is too much trouble. This is too much work. And when he actually starts caring about shit, and then he becomes a really cool character. We have another character that is named Kite. In the English subs anyway. In the original, it's just Toby. I mean, I get it. But if the creators wanted to give him an English nickname, they would have done so. Because one of the characters is named Chucky. And do you think Chucky is his real Japanese name? So they could have just left it at Toby. So I get what they were doing with it. But I don't know. It was weird that suddenly the subs decided to translate that name into something English. But I guess since it's a nickname, it works. And Kite is also a really problematic guy in the beginning who loves to cause trouble and beats up a lot of people and stuff like that. And we learn that he hates his stepfather because his stepfather seems to be a kind of an asshole, but he loves his sister and is kind of dedicated to making her happy and everything. It's his little sister and kind of dedicated to make her happy and everything because she is a really nice kid and always supported him kinda, and he just wants to be a good big brother and wants to make her proud, and so he kind of starts turning his life around after a while, after he gets a stern talking to by Sora in a way. And he in the beginning he's a super gifted player in general. He's the MVP of the team. Later he just basically can score from anywhere and anything, and it's great. But he can't work in a team in the beginning. That's his problem thing, and that's what he has to learn, not do shit on his own all the time. And it's a long road of getting him there. We learn why he has some troubles. He got his ball from his dead father, so it's very precious to him. And you realize that there's some bottled up emotions there that basically cause him acting up and everything and lashing out to anyone who gets in his way. So it's interesting to see him come around later on and turn his life around. these characters are great, man. This show has a bunch of fantastic characters that I love. Just talking about the teammates right now. And there are 2 more in here that I will talk about momentarily. But yeah, just the teammates of Sora are fantastic and have like these really beautiful little character bits that just make them really sympathetic to me pretty quickly. I'm just talking about the characters because that's kind of all the show has to offer. So bear with that for a while. And the other 2 probably biggest characters that I still haven't talked about are our kind of female leads, because there are kind of 2 of that. One is Madoka, who is from the women basketball team of the same school. And she and Sora become basically instant friends. When they meet, she recognizes him as a gifted player, as someone who, just like her, really loves basketball. And yeah, they have this really kind of sweet, maybe blossoming romance. Although later in the show, it seems like she might be interested in another member of the cast. And it's kind of really like, you don't know where this is going. But she's just a really cool character. She's really a good friend to Sora, especially when he's in need of one. And boy, is he later on. And yeah, Madoka is fantastic. She's a really sympathetic female character with a drive and a lot of power and strength. And it's just a really good addition to the show. There's this scene where after Sora has like basically killed himself in a match, she carries him home. Just on her very, very strong arms. And it's really cool. And it's kind of cute seeing her because she's a lot bigger than him in a way. Those 2 unlikely people becoming friends. And it's great. And she plays video games and also has a dog. I guess best girl right there. And the other female character that later appears is Nao, who becomes the manager but also kind of coach of the team. And that's the girl I was talking about earlier that gives Sora her shoes that perfectly fit his feet, which bumps him out. She turns out to be, even though she's a bit of a klutz, that's how she is introduced anyway, turns out to be a really brilliant tactician. Like, she's really gifted. She hasn't really played that much basketball herself, but she loves that sport so much that she has read up on it a lot, watched a lot of games, analyzed a lot of shit, and so she has become like this really gifted basketball tactician. And yeah, it's really cool to see her work, basically put the team into shape, give them a training regimen, and basically helping them to realize their potential. And yeah, she's also a really cool character, really funny character, and really likable character. And of course, she also kind of, I don't know, maybe falls in love. It's not really clear yet by the end of the show if they will, like I said, will do something with those romance options, quote unquote. But she also seems to be interested in Sora. While Madoka kind of gets aware of that from that by the end of the show. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. But these 2 female characters are just great. They're fun. They're an integral part of the show, each for their own reason. And I love how they were integrated in this. And yeah, it's fantastic. So more amazing characters. So let's quickly talk about the one thing that I really didn't like about the show, or parts of didn't like about the show. And that's the stuff with Sora's mom. And this is obviously set up as this emotional hook where he's like, hey, I want to make my mom proud and everything, and that's fine and all. But the show does a thing where it's keeping him artificially away from her for most of its runtime. Like, they don't see each other until a very important emotional climax, which in its own right is powerful, but it's like she is keeping him away so he can live his own life, his own high school life, and not worry too much about her sickness. And that's why she forbids him to visit her.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, having your son live his own life is all well and good. But later coming to his game and then not saying hello, which would mean the world to him, obviously, because he misses his fucking mom, and instead giving, a good luck bracelet that she initially maybe wanted to give to him, to Madoka to give it to Sora, is like the stupidest thing. Like, that made me angry. It's contrived drama bullshit. Like, look at it. Isn't it sad? Isn't she being strong and sacrificing so much? Yes, she is, but there really isn't any need to act like that. And it's definitely not for Sora's benefit. Not at all. I do not understand this. I mean, I understand her, kinda, but it's stupid. Really stupid. Like, I mean, I'm not a mom. Of course I'm not. But how could you come to the conclusion that it would be more important for your son to live his high school life than spend with his mom, who might or might not be dying? What? I do not understand this. This is really, this just troubled me. This really irked me. I did not understand why the creator of the manga, whoever, felt the need to create this artificial rift between them. There's a really strong emotional kind of payoff for this, or there's a really strong emotional moment between them later on in the show. And it really hits hard. It's really good. But I feel like it would have hit just as hard, if not harder, if they actually spent more time together and weren't kept apart, like, because of this bullshit reason his mom made up for, like, yeah, I want him to enjoy his life and not worry about me, and I want him not to waste his time on me. And yeah, I know why they did it, because it's like this kind of tragic thing, but it feels so artificial and so unnecessary. Like, no mother in her right mind would do that. No son in his right mind would agree to that. Like, if my mom told to me, was like, hey, I'm kind of sick and maybe I will die in the not too distant future, but I want you to enjoy your life, so please don't visit me. This would be the first and only time probably where I would tell my mom to fuck off. Because of course I would visit her. Of course I would see her. I would spend as much time as I can with her. And I would try to balance that out with my high school life or whatever life. But that would be the least important thing to me. And that is fine. Yes, that would maybe be a big part of youth, but that would not be wasted time. You spend time with the person you maybe love the most. How is that wasted time? How is you getting better at basketball? Yes, of course, it's self-finance, self-realization, whatever. But how is that more important? That train of thought is so beyond me. And when that was so prevalent in the show, like these few moments where that really is in the foreground and they really try to make it this really tragic thing and really do it with these contrived plot devices, and like, just stop. That is so unnecessary and it pulls me out of the show. Stop doing this. It's so stupid. And yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that really pissed me off about the show. There's like this moment where they literally say like, yeah, he hasn't seen his mom for half a year. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you for fucking real? This is not that I can't. I'm sorry. I can't get over this. This was a really dumb point in the show, and I feel like this show would have been even better. It's really good in the character department, but I feel like it would have been that much better if they hadn't resorted to this contrived, forced, tragic drama bullshit that was so unnecessary. And like I said, when the time comes for that emotional beat to hit, it really hits. That whole episode in general is really fucking good in terms of character work. But it would have been as well, if not better, if they hadn't done the other contrived bullshit before. So, I don't get it. To me, it's incredibly stupid and wholly unnecessary. And yeah, that's the only gripe about the show I have. But I don't want to end on a negative, so I'm going to pick out a few little things for the end here that I really liked. I love it when in sports anime, the opposing teams are not just the evil villain team, quote unquote, that you have to beat. I mean, I also like that too. I really do. If they're like these outlandish, cartoonish villains that you have to stomp into the ground and whatever, that's fine too. But I also really like it if the show gives the other team a lot of character and over time kind of makes you root for them as well. And one of the teams they play later on, Shinjo, is really sympathetic, and you really start rooting for these characters and you want to win them as well, which puts you in a lot of trouble because of course you want Sora's team to win, of course, but you also want the other team to win. So it's like you kind of feel good and bad either way how the match turns out. So it's like, all right, but I really like how much effort they put into making the other teams and characters matter and important and make the actual battle on the court important and matter because, there are stakes for each team. So it's important and it's cool. And despite all their outlandish shenanigans, all the comedic bits and all the funny shit they pull, all the characters feel really down to earth and very relatable. One of the other characters who doesn't appear that much, but also has some really good emotional parts is the teacher that kind of becomes their sponsor, doesn't really want to, but gets into it after a while. And he's a recruiter for himself. Don't want to give too much away, but he's really cool. And it's a nice moment when in one part of the show, he takes the side in a very emotional moment of the team that at this point is really down on their luck. Like everything is in the shits. Everything. Like talk about going from bad to worse. Like there is like just a really like bad shit happening one after another in the show, like for all the characters. And then he's the guy who, when everyone is saying, that team, that's, and those guys, they really don't deserve a second chance and everything. They're all fuck-ups, fuck them. And he's the only guy who stands up and says like, no, I've seen these people grow. I've seen these characters grow. I've seen where they started. I see where they are now. They're here to put in the work. They changed. Please listen to me. They changed. They're worth it. Please help them. And this, seeing his speech, seeing his plight is such a nice moment for a character you initially thought would just be a roadblock. And it's great. Again, super relatable character. And the final match they play against Yokohama, like the beginning of the match, pretty much most of the match is super hype. Like it's a really great match. And we get like a mirror character for Sora who has learned, as it turns out, basketball from Sora's mom, and who is kind of, like I said, a mirror character to Sora, but has perfected the playing style of Sora's mom. So in a way, he's kind of maybe more dangerous and more competent and more capable than Sora. And it's really fun to see those two clash, but also Sora has something that he doesn't have. He's actually the son of the mom. And it sounds like, okay, this might be a dumb thing, like we just got in Food Wars Season 5 with, the guy who's the main villain there. But it's not. It's really well done. And these two characters clashing for the first time is fucking great. And it's fun to see. And the build up to that is great as well. And I can't wait for them to clash again. And that's being like a great culmination of a future match. And really fantastic again in the character department, this show. And as a final thing, which I don't really talked about too much about, I think I've mentioned it before probably in reviewing Haikyuu. I really appreciate, which sounds like this most minor thing, but it's a pet peeve of mine. I really appreciate that there are large point gaps in this show. Yes, it's true that at a certain skill level, there don't tend to be these large gaps in the actual real matches, in the actual sport, in volleyball, in basketball, you name it. But it's much more exciting to see one team get suffocatingly dominated and then have this giant comeback that turns the tide and has them score a bunch of points. Yes, it's not realistic, but who cares? This is anime. And one of the very few minor flaws of Haikyuu is that it tries to adhere to realism when it comes to the flow of its matches. Course Basketball made the same mistake. So you see a scene that makes it looked like this huge turnaround for a certain team, and then we get a look at the scoreboard, and they're like only 2 or 3 points ahead, which kind of runs the risk to kill the hype sometimes, at least if the production values and direction weren't able to compensate for that, which they do in Haikyuu, of course. And Ahiru no Sora doesn't have the production values, but it also doesn't have that problem because it dares to create these somewhat unrealistic large score gaps that make the comeback moments feel much more substantial and hype, even without barely any hype-inducing animation. So it's cool. It's like seeing a team really down and really behind in score and then just turning it around, like doing this fucking catch-up game where it's like one basket after another and one basket after another, and they suddenly start dominating the other team because they found their groove, because they are in the zone. And it's really fun to see. And I like that this show, despite not pulling it off on the animation side of things, really does it regardless and brings the hype in terms of just staging the moments the right way with everything, with the music as well. With the music does a big part of enriching those moments. So It's cool. The only problem is, like I said, aside from the mount thing, I liked most of the show, all of this show. Only problem is it's really long and it's not even remotely finished. Like this, just like certain other shows I've rewatched this season, feels like the starting point of the show. Like feels almost like a prequel, maybe. I have no idea if we'll get another season of this. The manga, like I said, is still running, has 51 volumes, so there is probably a lot to still adapt. I don't know if this show was successful enough to merit another season. I hope so. I will watch more of Ahiru no Sora, most definitely. But right now, I don't know if I can recommend it because it's 50 episodes and the story is not even remotely finished. We had some nice character developments for pretty much all of the characters in the show. We had some really emotional high points as well, and that's all great. If you want to watch a finished show, this ain't it. So, I don't know what to tell you. If you like underdogs, because this whole show is an underdog in terms of not being that well animated, I guess, and being a sports anime, you might want to give it a chance. Just like its characters, it's trying its best, and sometimes it even surpasses some of its peers, especially in the character development department. But maybe the lack of animation and it's sometimes slow pacing during the matches and everything throws you off and makes you not want to watch anymore. I don't know. But I enjoyed it. I really like the characters. I like the story of this underdog team. And I would like to see more. I just don't know if I can recommend an unfinished 50-episode show to you. So we'll see if some of you are interested in watching it. If you want to, it's streaming on Crunchyroll, Netflix, and High Dive, depending on your country. And yeah, I would love for you to check it out and give it a chance. If you like good character development, it's definitely a show to check out and give a chance. If you like sports anime or basketball or whatever, maybe it's enough reason to give this ugly duck a chance.
So, after that, we're going back to another show that we've talked about before. We're reuniting with some friends, I guess you could say, with the second season of the new Fruits Basket. So, where do we begin? So, a year has passed since Toru Honda began living in the Soma residence, and she has since created stronger relationships with Shigure, Kyo, and Yuki. She's also grown closer to the rest of the Soma family and has become familiar with their ancestral secret, having helped them with many of their personal issues. The closer Toru gets, however, the more she begins to realize that their secret holds a darker truth than she first presumed. Summer is approaching, and Toru is invited to spend her days with the Somas, mainly Kyo and Yuki. Toru wishes for an easygoing vacation, but her close relationships with the two boys and the rest of the Somas may prove to cause trouble. As they grow more intimate, their carefree time together is hindered by older hardships and feelings from the past that begin to resurface. The eternal banquet also dawns on the members of the Zodiac, and they must tend to their duties alongside the unnerving head of the family, Akito Soma. With the banquet approaching and a plethora of feelings to be resolved, will Toru's life with the Somas remain peaceful, or will she find herself in a situation from which she cannot escape? So, as said before, this is a continuation of what we had previously talked about.
Spoilers, people, this is a continued series review, so be aware of that. We're going to talk in detail about shit. Yes.
So the big hook of this season, I feel like, and, it was kind of established in the first season that, the sort of looming shadow that is Akito among the rest of the Soma family. But I feel like this season sort of brings it more to bear, because a lot of this season kind of shifts onto being more, I guess it was kind of character driven before, but it was more so now, because the first season was more like Toru living with the Somas and getting acclimated to, her new lodging surroundings, however you want to refer to it. Whereas this time around, we see a lot more of the more individual character stories and how those all sort of play together into this web that Akito is sort of weaving for all of the other characters to fall into.
Yeah. In the first season, we get introduced to all these characters, and it's like almost the whole cast, I guess. Not all of them, but most. Then, like you said, this season, it's all about learning, hey, okay, how does the Zodiac thing actually work? What is the actual background story of our most important characters? And how does Akito figure into all this? Which is, he figures into all this. So it's like, that's the most important thing. And of course, some characters are featured more heavily than others in this season. And I think aside from Akito, this is probably mostly Yuki's season. I think he has the strongest, most important character development moments. His relationship to Akito really gets the spotlight. And also how he overcomes the psychological damage that resulted from that relationship. So, I would say that's the focus of this season mostly. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, everybody gets a little bit of something in this season, though. Like,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Yuki, obviously his story is a lot of butting heads with Akito and seeing where the hostility comes from, where it's possibly leading. And he has this moment where he doesn't have a great relationship with his mother. Not at all. But there's this.
I mean, it's understandable because his mom is a grade A cunt. Kinda. I mean, just being blunt about it, but like, whoa.
Yeah,
she's a very unlikable person, to put it more mildly. Like there's this scene where he has like this teachers conference thing, and she just appears out of blue. And I love how the table stretches and gets bigger to symbolize the emotional void between her and Yuki in that scene.
That was really good.
Yeah, this definitely results in one of the show's strongest scenes. Like. With Ayame, his brother, arriving to save the day, as he does many times in the show. Seriously, is probably my favorite character in Fruits Basket. And then Yuki finds the strength to tell his mom to let him make his own decisions. And him also realizing how small his mom actually is. It's also a neat little touch in that scene. Yeah. And all of that is really, really great and really well built up throughout the course of the show.
Ayame, he's great. I love him. The moment any moment he appears on screen, he just chews up the scenery.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
And it's really helped that I fucking love Takahiro Sakurai. He's so good at it in all. He does his best
work with Ayame, almost like one of his best anyway.
Yeah, just him getting to be big and bombastic and, oh, my dear little brother, at every turn.
And it's like, it's in the first season when we first meet the two brothers, you feel like they're completely, like, at least Yuki can fucking stand his brother. And he's still irked by him in this season, but Yuki has changed. Real smiles and confidence to speak his mind come easier to him thanks to Toru's influence, of course. She is the catalyst for all of this and the inciting factor. And so he feels like he can start becoming confident and wanting to building bridges. He starts building bridges with Ayame. And we learn that Ayame is afraid of being ignored by Yuki because he did the same when they were kids.
Yeah.
And didn't help Yuki when he was emotionally abused by their asshole mom. And there's, of course, still a rift between them. Yuki also can't handle Ayame's flamboyant attitude.
Who could, though?
Well, some of them can. Like, basically the other of the older gentleman trio, like Shigure and Hattori. They know how to deal with Ayame because they were always around each other and were basically best buds in high school, I guess. Or that's what I get from it. But Yuki definitely can't. Like, Ayame being like this outspoken, rejoicing at every nice thing Yuki says to him. Like, he immediately texted to Hattori. It's like, you won't guess what my dear brother just called me, and it's so adorable. And Ayame just can, you get the idea that he can rarely speak in an earnest tone to Yuki, but when he does, you quickly get the feeling that Yuki means a lot to him, even if he has to mask his true emotions with jokes. And of course, he works in a shop for handmade fetish wear. Of course he does. Makes total sense. And
no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's great. Like, those two brothers becoming brothers again in this season. And then the scene, like I mentioned before, when Ayame appears on the scene, is like, hey, I didn't help Yuki when he needed me most, when you abused him and you treated him like garbage. And I realized by myself that was a shitty thing to do, and I'm here to make amends. And you need to get there too, so get the fuck on it. In his own words, of course. And that's such a good scene. And it's so, oh, yes! Go do it, Ayame, you're the best. Fuck yeah. And I really love that scene, and I love Ayame. I think he's a fantastic character.
It's such a massive cast of characters. It's hard to pick a favorite, but...
Oh, yeah.
But Ayame, though...
He's up there. He's definitely up there. Like, there are a bunch of great fucking characters in this show, but he's definitely one of my favorites. Just his way of thinking and how he and Yuki become friends, which is him not letting it go, basically. Just trying over and over again. We're like, here, I'm here for you, please. I'm a jokester, I'm a trickster, I'm a fuck up, but I'm still, trying. I'm really trying. I'm trying to make amends. I'm trying to make better. At one point in the show, those feelings reach Yuki and their bond becomes stronger and gets repaired again. And it's just a great moment to watch. It's really heartfelt. It's really enriching. And it's just a really good emotional beat. And yeah, just felt good watching it. It makes your heart sing. So
it's probably my favorite part of this season.
Yeah, it's definitely one of mine. There are a bunch of other great ones, and most of them, like I said before, relate to Yuki because this is kind of his season. His and Akito's, I would say, in a way. I mean, there's a bit of Kyo in there as well, but he got his big break thing in the previous season when he transformed into the monster cat version of himself, and Toru wouldn't let go and basically pulled him back from that, giving him kindness when he didn't want any or didn't expect to get any. And there's probably going to be more of that later in future seasons, but this season is more about Yuki realizing who he is, how he can become stronger, and pulling away from Akito's grasp, which is the most important thing. In the beginning, he is not there yet. You get the scene where Yuki, for one reason, it's before he enters the Soma main estate, and right before he gets there, he has a panic attack because his memories of what happened to him bubble to the surface. But he pushes through anyway because he cares about Hatsuharu's well-being. Yeah, that's why he was there, right? Because he was afraid that Hatsuharu was in trouble. And they are good friends, really. Apparently he was Yuki's only friend for most of his life. And yeah, it's really cool seeing him overcoming his fears and everything. And then later on in the season, we get him working with the new student council, which I don't know how you felt about it, but in the beginning, it seemed to me like this would be just a distraction and an unnecessary addition to this already enormous cast. How did you feel about when they first introduced all these student council members?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way at first, but then they started to get, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time on them, which was fine. But we at least got to know each character, which which was absolutely fine by me, because knowing because the most interesting character of that was probably Kakeru, because he helped, Yuki, sort out his feelings a lot when he was having, the most trouble. Their characters are so diametrically opposed to each other.
Yes, absolutely.
But
he's basically another version of Kyo in his mannerisms and his bluntness and everything, and him fucking around. It's an important step. Clashing with Kakeru for Yuki is an important step in learning to work together with others and verbalize and convey his feelings to them. Because Yuki is not really about that in the beginning. He's really introverted. He's really soft-spoken. He's nice. He's friendly to everyone, but he doesn't really tell anyone what he's feeling deep down. And Kakeru is the guy who pulls that out of him because he gets so on Yuki's nerves. He's an even more impulsive version of Kyo. So like you said, the antithesis of Yuki, but without the family baggage, which is the important part. right?
Yeah.
That's the problem that keeps Kyo and Yuki apart from each other, because there's already too much history and then the whole Zodiac shit, and that's not there with Kakeru. And also Kakeru was kind of in a situation with his parents, similar to what Yuki went through with his mom. So Yuki feels like he has met, even though they are, like you said, different characters and really opposed to each other in terms of how they behave, Yuki still feels like he has met a kind of kindred spirit that he can really open up to. Mm-hmm. And they become fast friends in a way, and it's amazing to see. And it's great to see Yuki grow through that.
He probably has the most impact out of all of the student council characters. Like, Kimi and Naohito are kind of there to be there.
They're fun in a way.
Yeah. I mean, they're very, very loud and boisterous, and, you know when they're in the room. Hi, hello, yes, please keep it down.
Yes, indeed.
But I think the only other character on the student council that was actually kind of interesting was Machi.
Yeah, I ship her and Yuki hard, by the way. It's like, yeah, that needs to happen. Toro and Kyo and Machi and Yuki. We got our pairings right here. Now the show just needs to do the right thing.
Yeah,
so
pretty much. I mean, she's, also very troubled as well. So, she doesn't.
Absolutely.
She doesn't see Yuki as anyone special, but he still wants to reach out and help her through her troubles. But when things get really rough for her, boy, they get really rough for her. It's not a great scene for her. But again, everybody is a mirror of each other in this situation between Yuki, Kakeru, and Machi. And, the way that sort of helps establish this relationship and how they all sort of help each other through their shit. So, it's helps, make this really strong relationship between, between Kakeru and Yuki, between Yuki and Machi, getting out of her shell and wanting to, actually speak with others and try and, get to a good place in her life.
Yeah, actually find out her own character, find what she actually likes and realize who she is. And I also she realizes, she's like, no, Yuki is no prince. And of course that gets on the nerves of the fucking fangirls who always put Yuki on a pedestal and made him this character that he really isn't, but he assumed that because it was an image he could work with and stuff like that, and that would keep other people away and just act aloof, and everyone would be like, oh, he's a prince, and yeah, that's the way he is, and not ask any more questions. And of course that worked for him, but Machi's like, no, that's not the guy he is, really. He's kind of like me in a way, and he just looks really, really alone. And she hits the nail on the fucking head, doesn't she? So, it's really cool to see someone mirror Yuki in that way. And those two actually connect over that. They also fight, but yeah, it's like, I see something there. That could work. And returning to Kakeru for a bit, it's really nice to see Yuki's and Kakeru's friendship slowly grow. Like in episode 23 or 24, they have a friendly fight and then just leave school together and talk about hanging out at the market sometime. Like, this doesn't feel like a conversation Yuki would have ever had with someone aside from Haru, maybe. And definitely not outside of the Soma household before. Like, the signs are subtle, but it's really clear that even though they are polar opposite characters, they are becoming really good friends. And let's not forget, Yuki already partially opened up about his horrible childhood to Kakeru, which is like this giant unexpected leap forward in not trying to keep all of his feelings bottled up inside. And that's why Kakeru feels like such an integral character after a while. He doesn't really understand because Yuki doesn't tell him everything. He just says like, hey, I experienced some shit in the past and that's why I am that way and that's why I'm that way. But that's so much more than he has ever done before that he was ever said to any character. And it's like, oh, okay, I see. He finally found someone that he feels comfortable around to talk to, because that person kind of went through the same shit and is not of his family and everything. And it's like, okay, aside from Toro, of course, because she also changes a lot of that. But that's also a thing that gets very interesting this season and expanded upon, because in the beginning, both Yuki and Kyo are kind of set up as like this typical, hey, here are your two main romance options for Toru. This is a reverse harem show, and this is them, and it's like, hey, here are the two main guys. But when we finally learn Yuki's full background story, and it's really dark and really sad, holy shit, man, I felt sorry for him. But when we get to see all of the events that led to him meeting Toru for the first time and how that wraps up, it's also really beautiful. Also, him crying his poor little red eyes out is just the cutest and saddest thing I've maybe ever seen. Man. But that entire story beat really hits home, and it's really interesting that he considers his feelings towards Toru to be more of a mother-son relationship. Something that he always wanted, but obviously never had because his mom is an asshole. And he says she's like, at one point in the show, he says Toru is like the sky, very close, but also very far. Because she obviously can't be his mom. And all of this is really bittersweet. And I think it's a great episode that finally fills in a lot of the blanks for one of our main characters and lets us fully understand where he's coming from and what motivates him and what his holdups were and his psychological problems and damage. He admires her and feels an immense amount of gratitude towards her, but not in a romantic way, apparently. And it's probably the same for Toru. He thinks, however, that Kyo actually loves Toru as a woman, and Toru has romantic feelings for Kyo as well. And time will tell if he's right. The show hasn't really made a conclusive statement on that yet. Or do you feel like they actually said, yeah, this is going that way, and this is going that way?
I mean, they're clearly steering it in that direction, but, you know, they haven't been like, yep, this is the one. This is it. That's it. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like, yeah, no, maybe Kyo also needs more a friend but yeah, it definitely feels like those two are destined for each other. Because, you know, her favorite part of the Zodiac was always the cat and everything, right? And that's basically, hey, that's the setup of the show. So we gotta go there. So I'm interested. I mean, yeah, I mean, I hope that's what it's going for, because those two are clearly made for each other in a way. And that's how the show is kind of building it, but I don't know if it's actually going to go there. But also I thought, hey, Yuki is going to be the other factor into this, but this season kind of made clear that he probably really isn't. He's going to be a good friend to Toru, and she definitely helped him overcome his burdens and everything and his holdups, or has started to, but he doesn't want any romantic relationship for her. That's not the kind of love he feels for her. The warmth, the confidence she gives him, the power she gives him, the understanding and everything, is that what he always wanted from his mom? Those feelings, that support, that emotional support, that strength that he needed in his life, that pillar he needed in his life of strength, of support. He didn't get before, he got it from Toru, and that's how he feels about her. So yeah, that's kind of interesting, especially considering how Toru is a mama's girl. Like, it's a total. That's also a thing we get to that. Still want to say a few things about Toru, or I can say it now, because there's, you know, not that much happening with Toru in this season on a character development level, really. Yeah. She's more of like the catalyst for a bunch of things happening, and for a bunch of the plot moving forward and characters meeting and everything. But yeah, I said in the season 1 review that Toru definitely hasn't confronted and overcome her repressed feelings about her mother's passing. And boy, still not there. Wow. Like when Hiro, the little blunt jackass that he is, confronts her about her being so fixated on her mom, she ends up on the balcony mumbling, "It's all right, we'll always be together," to, you know, basically the picture of her mom, kind of. That poor girl needs serious psychotherapy. Like, holy shit. That's like she's helping everyone else, but she is in so much need of help. She is so damaged. Oh my god. It's surprising to me how much strength she can garner to help other people when she is so fucking broken. Wow. She's an amazing character, but I really hope someone will tend to her needs before she has like this complete and total mental breakdown, because she's always like on the brink of having that. It's sad because she's a really great character. Like, you see it breaking her heart to see people who are unhappy and not able or willing to fight for their wishes, because since they are still alive, their wishes could still come true, unlike probably her biggest wish to see her mom again, which can't ever come true since her mom died. And that's all really sad and tragic and horrible. And holy shit, Toru. God, I hope you find happiness. This is all... God, Kyo is probably the guy who's gonna make it happen. Like, this must happen. Otherwise, this will be a very sad ending to the show. I don't know, how did you feel about Toru in this season?
I think you kind of nailed it, because poor girl just needs a little bit of help. Just a little bit to help her, to get over what she needs to. And she's not there. Yeah. She definitely doesn't get there this season. But, there's still more story to tell. So, just maybe this whole ordeal with the Somas itself will be able to help. We don't know. Yeah. I've never read the manga, so I don't have any insight on that. But yeah, man, she just it's hard not to feel bad for her, like, constantly on that. But how do you overcome that on your own is the problem. And of course, there's this big support system around her that she has kind of helped to reconstruct, and now maybe it can help her.
Yes, I guess that's the thing. Like, she's gonna help everyone, and then everyone will come together to help her. That must be the climax of the show.
Yeah,
like, that must be the climax of the story, because she's gonna have some kind of severe breakdown and completely falling apart, and then everyone needs to come together to help her. Or it happens during the course of the show, slowly but surely. I mean, she has become more a part of a family again and has become stronger, but there's still so much amiss about her psychological state. And, there are little hints of it here and there of other people helping. Like, when Toru admits she is plagued by existential dread in this season, at the beginning of the season, Shigure recommends that she should try to concentrate on the here and now rather than fret about the future more than necessary. When she's like, oh God, am I going to find a job? What am I going to do with my life? And stuff like that. Short mental breakdown. Some of the Somas already helping here, and Kyo is probably doing the most to be a support pillar for her and telling, like, you're worrying too much about shit. Like, you're great, and you're great the way you are, and whatever, and don't be an idiot about it. He's bad with words in a way, but he tells her what she needs to hear in his own blunt way. Yeah. So, and more caring than someone like Hiro, for example. So, that's a good thing. I hope he will do the final thing and pull her out of her misery and help her overcome her feelings about her dead mother and everything. So we'll see if we get there. But yeah, let's get to the... let's first talk about the other two characters, or one of the other characters, because the other character is directly connected to Akito's story, and I want to get to that last. One of the new characters we get introduced to is Rin, who is the horse zodiac. She's also this very damaged character who was in a relationship with Haru and really suffered from Akito. And her first focus episode is hard to watch. Like, she was beaten by her parents, and when she finally found an ounce of happiness with Haru, Akito, the petulant child, quickly identifies her weak point and literally throws her out the window like trash.
Oh, man.
Woof. At these moments in the show, I was like, I know he probably won't die at the end of the series, but one can hope. And that's that, and the scenes with Yuki and everything. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ, that the show really did the trick, really made me hate Akito. And we get to that. That becomes really effective when you get a reveal at the end of this season, at the very end, and all of that gets turned on its head. And I love shit like that. So we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, Rin is also an interesting character, and she's very closed off and doesn't really want to talk to anyone. But she also is kind of like Yuki in that when she learns to accept Toru's love in a certain scene, she kind of opens up and loses some of her hardness. And because Toru, again, acts kind of like a mom to her, which is also what she wanted since she was abused by her parents and everything. And I think she actually mentions that to Yuki in a scene where she's like, she's the same to you as she is to me. And they kind of have the same relationship feeling towards Toru. And also, yeah, that helps her opening up. And it's pretty great. So she's an interesting new addition, isn't featured that heavily in this season, but the moments she's in, they are interesting. So I wonder if she will be featured more heavily in the third season and will play more of an important part. But still, despite her not being featured that heavily, her story was pretty interesting.
And I mean, the way she connected to Hatsuharu, because, oh boy, Haru kind of popped off early in this season. And
I mean, I can see why. And he's still one of the most sympathetic characters. His relationship with Ryuki is really great.
Yeah.
Him being like this really a reliable friend when, IMS still wasn't really, didn't really factor into Yuki's life yet and everything. And now Haru being kind of dumb because of Rin, because they separated and shit like that. And that's a really neat side plot that is spun during the course of this season. It's the emotional beats in that hit home. So it's really good stuff. I quickly want to, before we get to the main attraction, which is Akito, I want to highlight maybe some fun moments in this show, because this is also, it's a drama, big drama, and this season focused much more on the drama than earlier seasons, than the previous season. But there are also a lot of funny moments in the show, like a lot of really funny, heartfelt, and really hilarious moments in the show. Like the comedy is really good, and a couple of things that I just wrote down in my show notes, like the scene where Shigure is so happy when Mayu is pissed to see him turning up at the student-teacher conference. Their banter is great. Also, Diamond Dust, is that a Final Fantasy reference? I was like, okay.
Could be.
I get it. Maybe it's a general expression I'm not familiar with, but that's the first thing I was like, Shiva, what's going on? But yeah, the other really funny thing is the play, of course, which is mostly improvised and dumb as hell, but it's so fun. Also, I like how the final act becomes more about Kyo's actual situation than the story of the play.
Yeah.
And of course, also Arisa's relationship to one of the other characters, new characters. It's really cool. Another thing I liked that relates to Kyo, which we haven't talked that much about, I guess, or whose character is not developed that much in this season. Like I said, there's mostly Yuki and Akito and some of the new ones. But yeah, at the beginning of the season, the stern-talking Kyo's martial arts master, quote-unquote, his real dad, gives to his biological dad, is another one of those real fuck yeah moments. Just like the stuff where Ayame shows up to tell of Yuki's mom, basically. And it's like, yeah, God, that's also a great character, and you're Kyo's real dad, and don't let anyone tell you any different, because you are. And it's really great. You're the Piccolo of this, I guess, although without the physical abuse to Piccolo did to Gohan. But anyway,
it was training. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess. Dodge. Anyway,
Moon. Wait, what?
One of my favorite quotes or reaction is in the ghost house, where Kyo is at one point like, "Idiots! This town is full of idiots."
Yes.
I had to laugh very hard at that, because he's right, of course, and he's also one of those idiots. But it's just great. It fits so well, and it's one of those great comedic beats that the show is really good at.
Hey, you know what they say? It takes one to know one.
Yeah, and we also learned that Kyo actually had an encounter with Toru's mom before. Still waiting to get filled in on the details there. So far, we've only seen a brief flashback sequence, but that's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I don't think anything has been elaborated of that yet, or I've missed it, and I don't think there was anything in the previous season. So yeah, I have this really bad feeling. I don't know anything about the story, how it goes on. Everything in the second season was new to me. I have this really bad feeling. How did Toru's mom die? In a car crash, right?
Was it a motorcycle accident?
Or a motorcycle accident. I really fucking hope this is not going to be the big blow-up thing between Toru and Kyo, that Kyo, for some reason, as a cat, caused the motorcycle accident of Toru's mom by accident. This is, I don't know, this is a stretch, and this is like this weird-ass pull, but I hope this is not something they do, because that would be horrible. That would be horrible. God, that would like... Because I think they have hinted at like this, giving this sound bite where it's like her crashing her motorcycle and everything, and I just have a bad feeling about this, and I hope it doesn't happen. If it does happen, call me Nostradamus or whatever, but it's one of those things where it's like, does it? Maybe? I was wrong with all of these before, I think. I've said Night Eye in My Hero Academia Season 4 would turn out to be a villain. That didn't really happen, so don't take my word for it.
But I mean, all the signs were there, so it's not like you weren't off the mark.
I guess. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this turns out. God, I hope for both these kids that is not the case. It would be weird if Kyo kept it from Toru, though understandable. Or maybe he hasn't realized that it was a mom. I don't fucking know. We'll see. We'll see if anything of that comes true. I hope not. We don't need this. Toru doesn't need this. Kyo doesn't need this. So please, Fruits Basket, don't break my heart like that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, we'll see. Sometimes I worry, John.
I know, but look at this story. It's going to get you. It's going to get us all.
It got me several times. Speaking of which, let's get to our villain, I guess, which was only hinted at in the previous seasons and made a brief appearance. And you immediately were like, holy fucking shit, this is a threatening dude, even though very frail presence, like a very frail stature and everything, but like this really threatening presence, like immediately on the scene, and you are like, oh, that Akito is up to no good. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you look at him and you instantly know.
Yeah, and it gets so much worse this season. I think the first scene, of course, we get all the flashbacks with Yuki and everything, but I think the first scene where he really appears on the scene, and you know immediately, oh god, shit is gonna go bad, is when he turns up at the vacation house. Mm-hmm. And of course, Shigeru is the one who pushes Akito to come to the vacation house, because Shigeru's whole game plan, I think, is to force a confrontation between Akito, Toru, and the others. Because he counts on the connection between Toru and the rest of the Somas at this point to be so strong, or strong enough, to drive a permanent wedge between Akito and the rest of his relatives. And I think it's all in service of taking revenge against Akito and to permanently isolate him. We haven't really learned what the reason for that is yet. We can assume, but I think Shigeru probably had some... I assume Akito took something away from Shigeru at some point, and he holds a ginormous grudge for that. And unlike the other Somas who are willing to basically succumb to their fate and resign themselves to their fate, Shigeru is a trickster, and he's like, no, I'm gonna fuck you up, buddy. And yeah, that's what he's doing. He's scheming. He's being the trickster. He's being the guy who pulls the strings in the background to make all of this shit happen. The problem is he might not care who else gets hurt in the process. Or I'm pretty sure that's not his main concern. But we learn a lot about Akito in the past, in this season. We learned that he physically hurt a lot of people. I mean, we knew about Hattori in the previous season, but he hurt physically and psychologically. He hurt Yuki, he hurt Kisa, he hurt Rin. He's just lashing out all the time. He is portrayed like as this monster, as this childlike, very impulsive, kind of bordering on sociopathic, psychotic person who just fucking lashes out at everyone he can't control and he can't have for himself. And the moment they start pulling away from him, he just gets angry and tries to hurt them and tries to manipulate them to get back into his under his grasp, and to basically get chained themselves to him again. And it's really hard to see for all of the characters. Like he's portrayed to like this parasite sucking the energy and will to live out of everyone around him. Like he constantly demeans and belittles the other Somas and paints it as the sick, twisted way of caring about them. Like he comes across as like this sadist through and through. And
I mean, he goes as far as to say, I'm the god of the zodiac. And it's like, whoa, buddy, hold on.
Yeah. Everyone has to listen to me. And, it's not made really clear if there seems to be an actual supernatural power he holds above them. Like they can't resist his words. They can't really do anything directly to confront him. But there are ways around that. And we get to that because that's an important part of the season, especially when it comes to Yuki. But we feel like he's doing all of this to feel superior and wanting everyone else to do his bidding. Like you said, to the Zodiac members, Akito is basically a god. He has a stranglehold over their fate and commands their souls. Though like I said, there are not, maybe there are not really mystical powers at play here. We can't be sure. But it mostly seems to be just his standing as head of the family and him being a manipulative asshole who is good at playing with people's emotions. Could be one, could also be a supernatural thing involved because, actually, after all, these characters transform into animals when they're hugged by the opposite sex. So there's definitely a supernatural element. But it's not really clear if that's actually what Akito's power is, or if it's just the power of manipulation and being a twisted, sick fuck. And as the season progresses, we slowly, ever so slowly, get the small idea that's planted in our head that all of this is probably the result of him hating the life he was born into. There's small hints of that, like trickling into the show, trickling into the narrative, through the characters we see, how he acts when certain characters do something, like distancing themselves from him. When characters be like, okay, no, I want to do something myself. I can't be around you all the time. Then he gets really angry. You get the feeling he's like, maybe scared. Maybe he is afraid to be alone. And he hates seeing people finding happiness and strength on their own, carving their own way in life. Something he might not be able to do. Them releasing themselves from the chains that bind them to him. Because that is something he maybe isn't able to do. He is maybe chained to his fate, to being the god of the Somas, to having to fulfill a certain destiny, a certain task, a certain job, his fate that he was born into. And that makes him so angry and so sad that he wants everyone to suffer like he does. Instead of trying to be a better person, he takes his unhappiness out on all the people who can't act against him and thus chains them to him permanently so he isn't alone. In the beginning, you feel like, still, when you realize that, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it, maybe, but still a scumbag, and there doesn't seem really to be a reason for that. I don't feel sorry for him at all. He didn't choose his family, but he chose to be an asshole. And I was like, oh, are they going to give us a sob story why Akito became twisted, and try to partially redeem them? I don't know if it will work for me, considering how successfully they painted him as this annoying sociopathic brat, because their show does a really good job at doing that. They try also to do like this redemption arc or they set it up for Yuki's mom in a way, and that didn't really work for me either, where it's like, hey, okay, maybe because Ayame told you this, you're trying to now, but Ayame came to that realization by himself. And you needed a kick in the ass, and we'll see where this goes from here, but you're definitely not there yet. Like, that greedy bitch can rot in the dumpster as far as I'm concerned, at least right now.
I feel like she kind of started to take the first step, though. She
did, yes. And if there are more steps, I'm willing to reconsider. But right now, you got a lot of work to do, lady. It's true that you can't choose your parents, but you can definitely tell them to permanently fuck off if they treated you like garbage your whole life. So, and then, by the end of the show, we get this bombshell. Akito is a woman.
Oh, man, when that hit.
I mean, you could say there were hints, like, because it's really androgynous figure and everything and face. And I think if you pay attention, they kind of avoid certain pronouns for her. And I'm sorry for misgendering Akito throughout pretty much all this review until now, but I wanted, for people who didn't know, I wanted to make this kind of a surprise as well. That's why I still said he in the beginning. But no, they kind of try to hide it still or leave it open. But at the end of the show, Kurino, who is the last Zodiac I think we meet, he was the rooster, but through certain circumstances, Toru notices it kind of, where it's like, hey, why did the birds fly away from Kurino? Each Zodiac has a spiritual connection with their spirit animals, so all the animals are drawn to them, like all the rats run to Yuki, all the cats run to Kyo, and so on. But that didn't work for Kurino, who is this very close, sheltered-off person, like the direct, basically lackey of Akito. And we were always wondering, why is he so close to Akito? Why is he not doing anything on his own? Why is he not trying to hit something up with Arisa, who really seems to care for him? And it turns out the thing that Toru gets on her mind in the middle of the show, when she's confronted by Akito, instead of caving in and being like, oh God, I'm so scared, she's like, no, I'm gonna break this fucking curse. I'm gonna free all of these people from Akito's grasp. That was also one of those fuck yeah moments where it's like, you go girl, like Akito telling her not to meddle. Oh, she will meddle, motherfucker. And it's really great. And she realizes, wait, okay, she asked a bunch of different people, how can I maybe break the curse? And other people can't really help her because she doesn't really know. And then she realizes, wait, Kurino apparently isn't really that connected to his zodiac thing anymore. And it turns out Kurino already broke the curse. And this is probably what made Akito so twisted. Because she thought everyone would abandon her. And what is God without the zodiac? And that's when Akito started to be cruel and turn the other zodiac members into obedient servants so that they would never leave her side. And Kurino decided to stay by Akito's side because he felt sorry. In hindsight, maybe a mistake.
Maybe.
Yeah, because, people need to learn how to deal with loss, and just giving into their every whim just makes them spoiled psychotic brats, as it turns out. I mean, my suspicion is that Akito's mom is mainly to blame for all of this, because there is like this mysterious woman in the Soma main estate that we haven't really met yet. She's like, her face hasn't been shown yet. Toru almost encounters her, but then Kurino quickly grabs Toru and pulls her away and everything, so she isn't seen. And I think that woman's name is Ren, and I have my suspicion she is Akito's mom, because a lot of the story is about moms and, about parents being shitty to their kids. And I have a feeling Akito's mom forced Akito to live as a boy because God can't be a woman and has always been a man. And Akito got forced into this role that she didn't want to be in and was so afraid of being alone and had this distance to the other Zodiac members. And then when Kurino actually managed to pull away from her, from the link to Akito got so scared that she couldn't fulfill the prophecy, that she couldn't fulfill her role and would lose everyone and her whole meaning in life and everything she suffered through to fulfill her role, that her mom, probably her mom or the rest of the family, whoever the family had, forced on her, that would mean like completely destroying her life. And that's why she became so twisted and cruel. None of this has been confirmed yet. These are all suspicions by me, or all, things that I'm thinking that's where the story will go. But the hints are there. And I don't know, John, how did you judge or evaluate the final reveal of the show and how it all relates to what we have been seeing in this season so far?
Oh, boy. It's obvious that Akito's the superiority she felt she had, is not there anymore. And I kind of feel like the relationship that's starting to form between Arisa and Kureno is kind of probably, a big sticking point in there too, because, they're plainly attracted to each other. That much we know, and the part of the play where Arisa is basically shouting out exactly how she feels, and Kureno watching it after the fact, they both know what each other wants, but, Akito coming along and saying, you can't live your own life. Why would I let you do that? And that's definitely probably, I feel like that's probably the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. And now that even though Kureno has, no longer has the mystical, magical connection, as it were, that, the fact that he stayed by Akito's side so long, which, as you said before, maybe, probably, definitely a mistake. That, again, that is coming to bear, and that's it's the very, very last straw that, is making, causing Akito to kind of slowly start to just lose it. And it's clear that, she's not going to get back to the control she had before, because now that it's known that even one person has broken the curse.
Though Kurino doesn't know how he did it.
Yes, that's true. But
it just happened, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's kind of... That's also a thing that's interesting. Everyone else of the Somas, or at least most of them, consider this actually be a curse. Kurino never did, because he was able to fly in the sky and everything, and he didn't mind the connection to Akito. And him actually losing this was also kind of a world-shattering event, in not necessarily a positive way. So, yeah, but he doesn't know how it happened. And that's probably going to be, that's still the mystery that's going to carry over into the next season, where it's like, okay, what happened to Kurino that made him lose his connection to Akito? And it's probably buried in their relationship somehow, or something that Kurino realized about himself, or something where he didn't need Akito anymore to become happy or to find his role in life or whatever. It will be interesting to find out what exactly that is.
Yeah, I mean, because since the possibility is there, even though we don't know what it is, and since Akito has obviously known this for a long time. So now that the threat is there for the the separation from the quote unquote curse, what is she going to do? How is she going to handle that? Apparently not well.
No, not at all.
But
I mean, she's literally grasping at straws, and the problem is Kurino is helping her with that.
Yeah.
If he had already made things clear and said, like, yeah, I broke the curse here, all of you can do the same, but he's keeping up the charade, which still gives her more power than she should have. If all of the other Zodiacs realized that, they would pull away. But then also, maybe they could come to a different relationship, to a different understanding with Akito, and she wouldn't be alone. The problem is that this vicious circle is being kept running, and that's the whole fucking thing. And I hope Toru, now that she knows the truth, manages to find a way to pull everyone out of it. She probably will. The problem is where to start, because Kurino has already said he's not going to leave Akito's side. He's going to stay, because that's the thing he decided, and he can't go back on that. And so we'll see. Yuki, on the other hand, doesn't have that kind of, attachment or feeling of loyalty, because Akito always treated him like shit. So he's already pulling away from her grasp, because he has realized that if he gets proactive, he has the power to improve himself enough to become independent and rid himself of Akito. And Akito realizes a strength in Yuki's eyes and is so disturbed by that she attacks him. And Yuki already in his mind says, sorry, but I will never return to your side. And it's a satisfying moment. Though I have my doubts, Akito will just let it happen.
Oh, and absolutely not.
Yeah, and Shigure seems to count on that. He wants a big blow up, so Akito gets rejected by absolutely everyone. Shunned, isolated, hated. That's my assumption anyway. We still don't really know why Shigure apparently carries such a grudge, or if he just wants to break the curse himself, and that's his method of doing that. That might also be the case. Maybe that's the only motivation. I don't know. But so far, there has not really been made any, at least as far as I've seen it, not made any real conclusive statement on why Shigure does what he does. And I assume that's going to come next. That's going to be one of the big points in the next season, I would assume. And it's not like, oh, well, now Akito is a woman, so everything is forgiven and okay. Of course not. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. It's like, no, I understand where she is coming from. There is still a long road for her to go to turn her life around. And I know it's probably not her fault that the way she is. And I assumed that when I still assumed that she was a man. But the thing is, what happens next? It's just the setup is really interesting. And her being a woman helped me understand, oh, okay, I get why she maybe turned out the way she did, being put in this role of God or this role of a man that she didn't want to be, and being afraid of isolation through that. Makes a lot of sense. Don't know if that's actually where they're going with it. Probably, we'll see. But yeah, this got super interesting super fast. I mean, I thought the whole season was interesting. All the character development was great, and all the little character bits and comedy was fantastic. Like, I already liked the first season, but the second season is, Jesus, wow. And I can't wait to see where we're going from here. Like, there's so much shit that can still go wrong. Like, the show has made it very clear that it's not afraid to make things very harrowing and very torturous for our characters and very
uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable for us, the watchers. So there's so much interesting stuff still to learn. Like, what exactly breaks the curse? Who's responsible for Akito becoming as afraid as she has become? What's gonna happen with Toru and, her mom? What is the background story? We know how Yuki is entirely connected to Toru, but we still haven't learned everything about Kyo's connection to Toru. So all of this is still hanging in the sky, and we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So it's going to be super interesting, and I can't wait for more. I wonder if we get 1 or 2 seasons. I don't know how much volumes of the manga are covered by now, actually. But I would assume we would at least get another season with that episode count we got this season.
96, 97, 98. Okay, so chapters about 96 to 98 out of 134. So we're like 2/3 of the way through ish.
Yeah, I would say another season then with the same count. Yeah, that's what I expected. Okay, so we're gonna get another 24, 26-ish episode season probably then, right?
Yeah, about that. I mean, I think they also kind of break up the story as in like first year, second year, third year. So this last big arc will be the third year.
Yeah, the final year of high school. Yeah, I mean, every season so far had 25 episodes, so I have no reason to suspect that the last season won't have the same number, and that probably will be its final season. So a lot of shit is gonna happen in that final season. I'm hype, John. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I'm ready to have my heart broken.
Yeah, I'm hype. I'm also very scared. So this could very well have a bittersweet ending. A very bittersweet ending. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if everyone will be eventually part of the banquet or if some people will end up alone. I have no fucking idea. But yeah.
Fruits Basket is great. Y'all should watch it. It's depending on where you live, it's on Crunchyroll, Verve, Funimation, Anime Lab, Wakanim, Anime Digital Network. So it's on pretty much most of the big places with the exception of Netflix. But yeah, Fruits Basket is an emotional thrill, right? And
it's not really any action in it, but the emotions pack a punch. Looking forward to more. I highly recommend you watching this. If you haven't watched the first season yet, we just gave away a lot of major plot points, so what the fuck are you doing? At least catch up to it right now before we give away a lot of the shit that happens in the third season. It's worth it. All right, speaking of worth it, since this is the season finale of Anime Brain Freeze, there is still one little thing we have to do. Best of the season! Alright, best of the season time. For me, it was kind of a difficult season to choose for different reasons. John, I don't know, how were things for you? How are things on your end?
I was able to narrow it down to 3, like usual, of course. So it shouldn't be on this list. But man, The God of High School was a lot of fun.
It was.
It was such a trash show, but fuck if it wasn't just a blast to watch from beginning to end. I don't think it's worth being called best of the season, though, so I'm sorry. Appare Ranman is, I don't know if it's my new favorite PA Works show, but it's up there. It's up on the podium next to Shirobako. So I don't know if one could dethrone the other, but fuck, that show was so good. It had such a great cast, and even though it was a show about racing that didn't have a lot of it, let's be honest with ourselves, it had so many great moments and just a really fun plot throughout, and it was a really pretty show too.
Oh yeah.
wildly anachronistic with its vehicles, like we said. But it was great. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's also a pretty good pick. But, I mean, I think Fruits Basket is probably the choice for me anyway, because, you know, it has, again, it was such a crazy emotional thrill ride. There's so much just behind each character, the big twist at the end of this season. And I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but when we were talking about it, God, maybe a few weeks, a month ago, in messages back and forth, I had to correct myself from using a certain pronoun because you hadn't gotten to that point yet. And when you got there, I was like, there it is. That's it.
There it is.
Now I can say the proper thing.
Yes, that's true.
Man, fucking Fruits Basket is, it's nuts, but it's so good because all of the big emotional highs of the show they hit just right, and it feels so good. Just like I said, my favorite moment between Yuki and Ayame, and you know, telling their mom to be like, "Hey, come on, what's wrong with you?" And the big breakthrough there, and you know, and just all of the big breakthroughs that Yuki has in the season. It's so great, it's so good. Yeah, it's got to be Fruits Basket for me.
I can see why. So, let me give you my impression of the shows we watched. We'll see if we'll arrive at the same conclusion. Okay, let's start with Food Wars, which had a legitimate shot after it wrapped up its 4th season, but then the 5th season ruined it all. Same with Great Pretender, where the ending kind of killed the whole thing for me in retrospect. Decadence might have been a serious contender if it hadn't forgotten about its best character after 2/3 of its runtime, so that was kind of a bummer. I mean, it didn't completely ruin the show, but it was like, hey, you could have done better. I love the characters in Ahiru no Sora, but its story has only just begun, and I don't know if we'll get another season, so it doesn't feel right to me picking that one, also considering the animation just really isn't anything to write home about. It's still an anime podcast. And I can basically say the same things about No Gun's Life, which has so many plot threads left dangling, you could tailor a new trench coat for its main character out of them.
Dang.
But if it comes back, it might get better. The pacing in the first season was also not that great, so I don't know. It never was a serious contender, but there's room for improvement, so maybe we'll see. Maybe it will come back, and maybe it will become a contender in the future. God of High School. Entertaining, superbly animated, but really confusing and dumb. So best seems a bit of a stretch, even though it's probably the show I had the most fun with this season for a lot of its runtime. But yeah, for the same reasons you said, I don't feel comfortable naming it best of the season. Most enjoyable, maybe, in a way. Most bad shit, crazy popcorn bullshit. But doesn't quite reach the top for me. And that leaves me as well with Upper Ranman and Fruits Basket. And since you picked Fruits Basket, I'll make it easy on myself and pick Upper Ranman. It's a cheat, I know, but we get to have our cake and eat it too, and I love it when we can do that.
Yeah, exactly. They're both great shows, so why wouldn't it be both?
Exactly. So, yeah, Upper Ranman, like you said, it's this perfect little basic fun show with some great character bits and a really underused setting and setup. And I like the show a lot. It has this really tight pacing. It has a neat story to tell. It's one season. It's short. It's fun. And it tells everything it wants to tell in this one season. And it's just a nice, fun action character romp. And yeah, it's cool. It's super cool. And like you said, it looks really, really great. So yeah, if you are just in the mood for quick, fun anime with good production values and everything, with a nice setting and all of that, and great characters and great comedy and everything, just Upper Ranman, you can't go wrong with it. So that would definitely be my pick. But if you had picked Upper Ranman, of course I would have picked Fruits Basket. Obviously, because that also shares the number one spot for me with Upper Ranman, because Fruits Basket is like this incredible character drama with comedy sprinkled everywhere in between, of course. But something I would never expect with such emotional highs and such emotional very lows, like where it's like, oh God, oh, I feel so sorry for these characters. I feel so bad for them. I just want to hug them. I just want to help them. And without being sappy or without being super contrived or anything, like feeling like this weird bullshit, whiny, fake drama. It just, all these characters feel genuine. All these characters feel real. All these characters feel like they're coming from a real place. And that with the supernatural element in it, which is an accomplishment by itself, where it's like that this show, that these characters feel so real and so close to you, the way they are written, the way they are acted, the way they are put in the story and, you know, set against each other, to clash with each other, to become friends with each other. And all of that feels really great. And then you got some nice plot developments, and the plot really picks up in the season. And then you get a really cool bombshell plot twist at the end that changes a lot of the things the season intentionally, of course, made you think in the beginning. I am super interested to find out in the next season of Fruits Basket, whenever that hits. I think it hasn't been announced yet, right?
I think it's supposed to be airing next year, but it doesn't have like a time frame, rather.
Yeah.
Should clarify next year, meaning 2021 as of this record.
Yeah. I mean, I made some New Year's allusions in the intro, but let's be honest, this episode is going to release after New Year's, so whatever.
Yeah.
2021 will be probably the final season of Fruits Basket, and I can't be more hyped for it. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, people, 2 amazing shows this season. A lot of shows that had problems also in the seasons, but the 2 picks definitely are must-watch. Appare Ranman in itself is just this neat, tight little package that you can binge in one day very quickly and enjoy all of it and have a good time. And it's light and it's fluffy and it's fun and has some neat character development in there on the side that I didn't expect. And it's just super entertaining with high production values. And on the other side of things, you have this long, sprawling character drama starting with its first season in Fruits Basket and now revving things up in the second season, and everything that happens in there is super emotionally rewarding and interesting, and there are so many cool payoffs, and there probably will be many more in the third season. So get the fuck on that while you still can and can still be surprised and not have us give everything away when we review the third season, which will of course happen whenever that releases. But yeah, with that, we're done with this boy, are we done with this fucking year. Holy shit. Yeah, that's it for Anime Brain Freeze for the wretched year of 2020. Hope to see you soon in 2021. Hopefully a better year, a healthier year, a year where we can maybe finally see people again without worrying eventually that much anyway. Keep those vaccines coming. And yeah, let's hope for the best. Let's wish everyone a happy 2021. I know I need it. I'm pretty sure John needs it.
We all need it. But, until then, you, wear a mask, drink some water, take care of yourself, call your mom, and have a happy New Year.
Yep. Happy New Year, everybody. And that is a wrap on the 105th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
From Japan to Russia.
The wild journey to the frozen north continues.